with that being said, I did all this very meaningful stuff in my 20s and my 30s. So on my deathbed, I could look back and you won't ever remember the money. Right. You won't ever remember the things that you bought with the money unless they were like huge things. But you'll remember the experiences that you had with people you cared about or you still have a relationship with. Like, and that's kind of, as I get older, that's when I'm learning what life is all about. Let's talk about being creative.
The following conversation is with Chris Hornbrook. Chris is mostly known for being the drummer in Poison the Well, though he also plays drums for a variety of music artists, such as Greg Puciato, Dhani Harrison, The Black Queen, Big Black Delta, Trash Talk, or Senses Fail. During the conversation, we touch on subjects such as the role of mentorship, finding meaning in making music, setting values in life, what are the biggest motivations, working with your strengths, what music teaches us that we can apply in other areas of life, how to deal with performance anxiety, showing discipline in creative work, talent versus effort, the flow state, daily routines and habits, how to overcome a creative rut, the power of creative collaboration, the role of autonomy in music making, and what it means to express your personality through your music, the importance of goal setting, the relationship between dreams and creativity, making beneficial lifestyle choices, and the nostalgic power of music. On a personal note, Chris' music has been one of the biggest influences and inspiration on my own music journey. I had a blast discussing the different subjects with him, and I hope you find it interesting and valuable as well. Enjoy. Chris, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, no worries, man.
Yeah.
Of course.
Super stoked. Can you tell me real quick the story, why you pick music, how you get started, why the drums, and maybe is there a specific moment or memory you can go back to, or maybe someone who inspired you to start playing the drums?
So my dad played bass, and so it was kind of the household always kind of had some sort of musical element in it. Both my parents listened to music as well. So because of that, I was just always surrounded and immersed in it. When I was young, like around 6, 7, my parents opted to give me guitar lessons, which I played around for a little bit, but it like wasn't really something that I was that into, because sometimes it takes you a minute to figure out like what you want to do, and sometimes you have to try and fail at stuff or try and just maybe it just doesn't resonate. No. So I did that. I played guitar for a few years, and then I just kind of lost interest in it. And then when I went into middle school, I started playing alto saxophone, which is cool, but like not really.
I played soprano a little bit.
Yeah, like it was just something different. And I remember always like kind of staring at the drum kit and being like, oh, that looks really cool. And then my mom rented me a cornet, which is basically like a trumpet. And I didn't really learn it. I was just trying to blow into it. And you just kind of get stuff and you're like, does this work? Does this not work? How does this feel when I hold this? Or it wasn't until I was about 12. And then when I was 12, I went and hung out with a kid in my neighborhood that had a drum set, and he just so happened to be selling it for like $200. It was like a CB percussion kit, had cymbals and all hardware and all that. But it was, so it was a beginner's kit. So I remember running back home and just asking my mom, hey, can you buy this for me? Right. Which is always a big ask for something like drums. These drums are just fucking loud.
Exactly.
But for some reason they're like, yeah, cool, we'll do it. And spent the $200, and that was the beginning of me actually feeling some sort of connectivity to an instrument, which prior, every time I picked up something, it was cool, but it like didn't really get me going.
And was there a specific music that, got you more into it?
It started, obviously as a child in the 90s, you would hear normal pop music or like hip hop at the time. But I think Queen was the very first band that I had listened to that I was like, oh wow, this is awesome. Like, and it was more the magnetic nature of their songwriting. Like there was such great eclectic songwriting in Queen because all of them wrote songs and they're all immensely talented people. Mm-hmm. That was the first thing that kind of drew me in. And then obviously Roger Taylor, the drummer of Queen, was like my first like, well, it'd be super fucking cool. Like, nothing crazy. Everything was very like in the pocket and very simplistic. And he had his sort of element that he had brought to the band. Plus he was a songwriter and he sang as well. But it wasn't until all the early 90s stuff kind of kicked in where it felt, actually, at that point, I felt like it resonated a bit more with me emotionally.
Okay.
You know, like bands like, you know, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, like the kind of like the big four of the early 90s explosion. More, and for me, a little bit more with Nirvana and Soundgarden. Those were like the two that were like, and it was the same thing. It was I was always attracted to the songwriting, like Soundgarden, Super Unknown, like incredible record, incredible songwriting, incredible production, like Chris Cornell, like Matt Cameron, like the whole, it's great. And same thing with Nirvana, like Nirvana with not so much Nevermind. Nevermind was cool, but I missed that just a little bit. It was In Utero. Like I kind of got on the train when that was happening, and it felt, I didn't realize it at the time, but it felt it was a very honest and pure record. And I think that's one of the things that like resonated the most with me.
Nice.
And then from there, that was like the first, and then, you know, you start kind of branching out and listening to other things. But though I would say that's the core, would be Queen, Soundgarden, and Nirvana. It was like the first three. Obviously Queen is so detached because it's from a different era.
Yeah, I think the creativity when it comes to Queen is off the charts.
Incredible.
Yeah,
it's incredible songwriting, you know, incredible talent in that band.
Right. And then so the Seattle sound had a huge influence on you.
Huge influence, yeah. It some bands resonated and some bands didn't. Like I didn't really get too much into Alice in Chains. Like as an adult now, I appreciate it more. I think there was a bit of me at the time being, you know, a teenager, early teenager. There was a maturity, a certain depth to it, a certain level of maturity that I just kind of didn't, it was just a little over my head at the time.
Okay.
Now I come back now and I listen to it, I'm like, man, this is some great songwriting. And you listen to like Jerry Cantrell and Lane Staley sing together and you're like, wow, this is really unique. And then you listen, you kind of, I'm not a big lyric guy. I'm more like how the melodies and everything work together. But when you start peering into his vocals a little bit, you're like, man, it's got like this very deep, like a lot of deep sadness there that I think as a child or a teenager just would have went over my head.
Yeah. How would you describe your personal relationship with your music when it comes to at the beginnings and how it is now? Like how did it evolve, change over time?
I think at the beginning for me, it was pure, like, excitement, right? As a child, you know, you have the bands that you listen to and the musicians that you admire, and you're still trying to figure things out. You're still trying to get the mechanics down and, like, can I play this fill and play the fill right and play this beat right? And it's just the excitement. And then when you kind of learn how to get, like, a basic level, so a basic foundation to it, then it's like emulating the bands that you listen to. So I think at the time it was just pure excitement, especially too when you get a guitar player. Like, you know, I had kids in my neighborhood that would come over, or friends of friends that would come over, and we would jam. And it's like, you know, they knew a little bit of like Lithium by Nirvana, so we would play that, or the beginning of this song, so we'd play that. It was just the discovery of everything, the excitement of it. And then from that, it transitions into wanting to make music with people. Well, why just play it? Like, why don't we make stuff? That was always something that I felt like I was always gravitating towards, was making music and trying to make very unique things with people. Right. And then you go and then you start doing that. And then it became more of like, well, can I do this? Is this possible to do? Yeah. And then, you know, then you get met with, at least for me, since my dad played bass and he knew how difficult the life was, and you get met with the harsh realities of playing music for a living, because it's very, very fucking difficult. Yeah. So it kind of just transitioned to, like I said, into excitement, into being creative with people, into cultivating those relationships, and then finding some sort of musical scene to immerse yourself in. Because that's, I mean, I wouldn't have done anything that I did if I didn't discover like punk and hardcore and those local scenes and communities in the South Florida area, which was very limited. It was very, at the time, it was very small. I don't know how it is now. I don't know if it's non-existent. But it was wasn't very big.
Was it Fort Lauderdale or where was it? I remember Gainesville.
It was Fort Lauderdale, but it was also Miami as well, because Miami and Fort Lauderdale are linked together because they're basically, you know, they're brother sister city, you know.
Okay.
So, but yeah, that's kind of, I would say, the earlier stages of my relationship with music.
Some people call it like music or their arts like a calling. Is that something you can relate to?
Calling?
Like a, you know, like
yeah.
How meaningful the relationship with your craft can be, or your art.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. It's kind of like, I didn't choose it, it kind of chose me, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because it was so exciting. But yeah, I would definitely say that. I mean, this is the only thing that I've ever wanted to do in my entire life.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And like doing everything you possibly can to build a career in it and be able to make a livable, you know, making a livable wage, having a certain level of lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult, you know?
Yeah.
Very, very difficult.
Crazy competitive.
Extremely.
Yeah. What's your view on having a mentor? You know, did you have any mentors who nurtured your passion and skill set? Did they encourage your personality or maybe hinder you with your music journey?
I think mentors are great. I think with the whole mentorship, I personally wish that I would have had more mentors growing up. I had figures that I looked up to, but maybe wasn't a direct like, hey, will you mentor me? Like an understanding of sorts. But more, I observed people in my lives, whether it was family members or it was outside figures that I would admire, and I would try to figure out what they're doing and how they're doing it, rather than maybe being direct and asking for mentorship. I wish, thinking back now, I wish I would have asked that sort of thing. Whether they had given it to me or not is obviously a whole other thing, because you know they have to agree. But when you have somebody to be your mentor, that's a very large ego boost. So, you know.
What are your priorities in general in life? The things that matter most to you?
Right now, I'd have to say, first and foremost, my family. You know what I mean? That is priority number one. I would say second is obviously like, you know, friends and very meaningful relationships outside the sphere of family. And I'd have to say third would be, what would be third? I wouldn't necessarily say it's music, because for the longest time, music was number one.
Right.
But because of that, then you just start to neglect certain things.
Yeah.
And now it's like kind of coming around where it's like music isn't the priority. Like I've reached a certain level of playing, and not to say that like I want to stop, but sometimes you need to like rearrange your priorities because other things need tending to.
Yeah.
But I'd probably say that as like definitely family and friends, and cultivating healthy relationships with them and meaningful relationships with them. After that would be music, and then tied to music would be the sort of monetary aspect of life, of making money to survive and making money to maintain a certain lifestyle.
Right.
I would say those are those are the priorities in my life.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you experience a lot as a younger musician already, you know, with music, right?
Yeah, I think because
you've seen the world because of music.
I've been very fortunate to be able to do that. But in the what I've learned with life is everything's a trade. Like you're trading off, right? So in my early life, I chose to focus in on Poison the Well, on building the band, on touring a lot, being able to see the world, which is, you know, a consequence of that, which I had never really intended. It just came along with it. But in doing that, then you neglect other parts of your life. And now I'm finding that I'm going to be 41 at the end of the month, that it's like, oh man, I neglected this, or I didn't deal with that, or you start to realize like, man, things that people were doing in their 20s and 30s, I was living this very incredible life, but it came at a cost.
Exactly.
That now I'm having to, and it's the same thing with people that pursue, say, maybe careers that are maybe more rooted, or they go to school or whatever. There's always a cost to everything that you do.
Yeah.
And those people, they might be making a lot of money on this stuff, but they didn't get to see the world. They didn't get to fulfill a deep dream within, that they had. Like, so I think the big takeaway that I'm learning is that like there's always going to be a cost, there's always a trade-off, and if you're willing to do the work, like you will be able to figure whatever out, right? So now I'm having to deal with things at a later age, but I'm dedicated in dealing with those things. So at some point I will solve those problems, whether it's a financial problem or an emotional problem or this problem or that problem or whatever problem it is. It's like, well, I may have been able to solve this in my 20s, but now I'm able to solve it in my 40s. But with that being said, I did all this very meaningful stuff in my 20s and my 30s. So on my deathbed, I could look back and you won't ever remember the money. Right. You won't ever remember the things that you bought with the money unless they were like huge things. But you'll remember the experiences that you had with people you cared about or you still have a relationship with. Like, and that's kind of, as I get older, that's what I'm learning what life is all about. It's like, money's cool. If you can make a lot of money, that's rad and have nice stuff. But money solves money problems. Money doesn't solve problems outside of money.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I also learned if you say yes to something, you say no to something else. Yeah, and I like this deathbed thing. It's a good exercise to look back. You know, like imagine it and then look back. Any regrets?
Yeah. If I were to find out that I was going to be dead in a year from now, obviously the decisions moving forward from this day to my deathbed would be very different. But would I look back on my deathbed and be like, man, I fucked off. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. I think that we all live with a little bit of regret. Right. But I think that I could honestly look back and be like, man, it was cool. I lived a cool fucking life. Saw a bunch of countries, played a bunch of music, worked with heroes of mine, worked in places that were very influential for me growing up, like cool studios, and like made some sort of mark within myself that I could feel good about in the music community, and dedicated myself. I'd feel good about all of that stuff. I wouldn't look back and regret, because it's like where you look back and be like, oh, like I said, the money, the sort of the money thing, where it's just like, unless you bought a house or you bought a yacht, you might remember that, but is that meaningful?
Right.
It's just a thing. It's cool to have things. Things are fun, but things are there to facilitate. Like, I got a rack of snare drums. It's all awesome. It's thousands of dollars worth of drums, but they're things to facilitate what I love doing. They're not things to have that, that sort of thing. I don't have them to have them. I have them because they make a sound and they do something that's beneficial to what I love doing.
So social connection right now is your main priority. Did COVID change that perspective also, more strengthened it in a way?
It definitely changed it. It definitely gave me a lot of time, and it gave me a bit of stability, because everything just shut down, and financially I wasn't in a bad position. And I live in a very nice home in a very nice place of the country, and I'm naturally an introvert, so I didn't need to be around people to feel like I didn't get my energy off of being around people. So it gave me a lot of time to think, and it gave me a lot of time to reprioritize my life. It gave me a lot of time to take an inventory of what was holding me back at that point in my life. Whether it was undealt childhood trauma, this, that, how do I want to improve my playing, get into better physical condition, blah, blah, blah. It gave me, I was able to really just not worry about what was going on, because nothing was happening.
Exactly.
So I could just be like, cool, okay, I'm going to jump rope more, or I'm going to lift weights, or I'm going to, be religious and going into my studio and playing and trying to improve upon my playing, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, or, so on and so forth.
Awesome. The people you admire most, what do you admire about them?
I would say, if I look back, I don't know if there's a common thread amongst everybody, because I look at people, the people that I admire them for their uniqueness, right? So I could admire one individual, say, for his dedication to his family and his dedication to his children and his very unique nature of making people feel like they matter, right? And being very generous with his time and his money. And then they could look at another person and be like, man, you're like somebody that like kicks ass, and you're somebody that like really pushes, and like it's go, go, go. And you want to be successful, you want to be prolific. And then I could look at somebody else and be like, oh, you have a very warm, nurturing nature, and I feel very close to you because you are somebody that we've gone through very similar like life trajectories, right? So I feel like the things that I admire are unique to the person, and sometimes they're completely in sync with who I am, so I feel connected because we have a shared experience, separate maybe, but this person went through this and I went through this, and like, you know, you feel some sort of connection that way. Or it's somebody that like I admire it because it's not me, and I'm like, man, I like that about you, like that's totally the opposite of me, but like I want more of that. I want to like take a little bit of that and bring that into my life because I feel like that's lacking, you know. And I think that comes from a lot of introspective thinking,
right?
And I think it comes from self-reflection and honesty, being honest with yourself. So yeah, that's kind
I like that a lot. What kind of person do you definitely not want to be? What are the values you wouldn't compromise on any circumstance?
I would say the person that I don't want to be is somebody completely cut off from the world, that is totally interested in things that are totally self-serving. And I understand to a certain degree human beings are, we all have a certain level of narcissism, and we all have a certain level of like, we want to benefit, right? That's part of that's part of being a human being. But I would say that like everything is not a zero-sum game, right? Like for me to win, you don't have to lose. I feel like everybody can win. And I don't want to be a person that has to destroy other people to benefit. I fundamentally think that's wrong, and I think that everybody can win. There's no reason why everybody can't win, right? You know, and I do think competitiveness is fine. If obviously you're in a situation where you and somebody else are competing, they don't have to lose.
Right.
You know what I mean? It doesn't, like, you both can benefit. There's enough, we live in a huge world. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of out there. It's like, you don't need to destroy the person for you. Like, that's to me is a very, I don't know, it seems to be a very childish way of thinking about things. Yeah, very toxic way of thinking about things.
I think competition is a natural part of life.
It's good. I think competition is good. Competition forces you to be better.
Exactly.
You see who you're in a room with. It's like you should never be I always have this belief that you shouldn't be the most talented or smartest person in the room. You should be the least talented and smartest person in the room, because that means you're in the right room. Exactly. You're surrounded by people that are going to make you better.
Right.
You know, people should always want to be better, whether it's their craft or them as a human being or whatever, you know?
What are the factors that motivate your actions in different areas of life other than music? Or is there maybe someone or something that inspires you and motivates you in general?
I gotcha, yeah. I would say right now, building a relationship with my girlfriend is a huge motivator. Yeah. I would say remedying childhood trauma that all of us carry. Because sometimes that shit's generational. Right. That's a big thing right now, because at least for myself, I start to learn that like it's what holds you back, or it's one of those things that sort of create problems in friendships or in whatever you're trying to accomplish. It usually comes back to your relationship with your parents and whatever trauma or attachment styles or dynamics that were created in that. And I think that is a huge motivator right now. And then obviously, you know, we live in a society right now where like, we live in a state where you need to make a lot of money. I'm very motivated with making money and being able to elevate my lifestyle. Not that is the first and foremost, right? But like having money to do things and not having to worry about stuff is vital. And like I said, the industry that we're in is very feast or famine. You know, 1 minute you're on top of the world and you have a lot of cool shit going on. You have you know, good money coming in, and I don't know where it's like, right. So I think those are the three biggest factors that are all in different avenues of my life.
Yeah, they can cause a lot of I don't know, anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Shit
where's your next meal going to come from? How are you going to pay your rent? These sorts of
Exactly.
things, you know.
Yeah. When you reflect on your greatest achievements and the biggest challenges you faced, what do you think enabled you to arrive at these? It's about your strengths.
I would say, obviously, yeah, like you said, strength. I would say understanding kind of what. It's not just one or two things, right? Or three things. It's a collection of things, right? I heard this concept called stacking. You stack. You might not be a master in all these particular fields, but you try to stack a bunch of unique qualities and attributes and talents together that make you a uniquely desirable person to have, right? And I think that has kind of played a bit of has always given me a bit of an advantage, as I stack a lot of unique things together, or very desirable things together that you know, that has been able to always get my foot in the door and get me gigs. Now sometimes you might have all those qualities and you might get your foot in the door and you're just not the right guy because whoever's hiring you is looking for a particular type of player, or there's some sort of chemistry that's not there. Those are the intangibles that are completely out of your control.
Yeah.
But I think that I have worked and cultivated a lot of things that I could stack together that make me desirable to get my foot in the door with certain things. Okay. And obviously when I was younger, it was different. As you get older, you build your resume, you build your experience, you become a better player, you become very aware of the things, of like what you need to do to survive. Yeah. And I think that it's not always solely dependent upon talent. Right. Talent is a big factor, but if you're very talented and people have to spend a lot of time with you when you tour, and there has to be chemistry. And if you're a difficult person to be around, but you're really great, you know, it's like the talent's there, but the chemistry and the personal, and being personable and being a cool person to be around. Yeah. Sometimes that's fucking hard, you know. Yeah, sometimes people that are really talented lack in the social department, and it's like, I don't want to really be around this guy. They're not very pro-social, you know. Right.
Yeah, you can be the best, the best guy on paper for a specific position, but if you don't work in a team well, then the team won't perform that well.
I've heard this term that you usually get you usually get hired for your resume, but then you get fired for your fit.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which I thought was a very good thing. It's like, on paper you're great, and you walk in and like, this guy does just not work in our team at all, you know? And then you find somebody that on paper doesn't work, and then they get brought in, and you're like, man, this person's kicking ass, you know?
Right. How do you express your personality through your music?
I think that and I think this is amongst every single musician that I know, if you know what to look for, you could understand how people express, like you'll be able to pick it out. It's like somebody's personality going into their music, into how they perform and their play on their instrument is very it's almost kind of like this other, I don't know, not sense per se, but like it's kind of like a little bit of like a deciphering, like this ability to kind of like, I don't know, translate, maybe that's the right way to say it, translate. And it takes a while. Like, I think you have to achieve a certain level of musicianship within yourself and be very observant of the people that you're playing with, or maybe players that you admire. It's a little bit more different with players that you admire if you don't know them personally, because you don't have the other half. But yeah, the way I think exactly how a personality is in somebody is there's a direct link to how they play. And if they're a little bit more flashy, or if they're less flashy, if they're a little bit more pocket, if they're a little bit more this, like how they craft and how they play it's just like, oh, that's exactly like how you are as a person. I just think it's kind of like another thing that you kind of have to develop and see. Because now the people that I've played with, that I'm friends with, I kind of can see that.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I totally see that, where it's just like, oh, it makes sense, you know? Like,
yeah. Do you think like a quality of taste, for example, needs to be developed then as well with your?
What do you mean by that?
That you can tell that this is a good song. For example, this is a very well arranged song or written song, while others wouldn't, who are not maybe don't pursue a creative career, are not in music and are just like a consumer of music. Maybe they don't have specific quality of taste, while more professionals can tell this is a better song than that one.
I mean, I think so, but it depends the metric, right? Like, if the metric is moving units and selling and making money, then maybe the guy that understands music and has his or her own creative path that they want to do might not be tuned into how to write a great pop song in our current state, you know? And because of that, the consumer, if your metric is money, then the consumer obviously is the person that, or the people that are going to, I guess, know best. Because you're, you know, in a capitalistic society, if that's the metric. Now, if it's the metric is to write something very incredible that has a lot of tension and release and has all these really great elements of maybe pop and commercial mixed with maybe artistic, maybe mixed with this, and then yeah, maybe the musician has the better perspective on things. Yeah, I guess the metric, it's who's defining the metric, right? It's like, you know, like what's the metric, you know, is it money or is it creativity?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
At least that's what I kind of interpreted from your question.
Yeah, of course. Like if it's in the end just making a product that sells well, no, I don't know.
Then the consumer is the one that knows best.
Yeah.
Because they're the one that's buying it, right?
Yeah.
But if it's like, if you're making something for your peers, then like...
And what's more like the creative aspect? Yeah, that's what I was more looking for.
So more of the creative aspect, whether it's an average person or a person that's involved in music, is that kind of what you
or like I think to me maybe intuition plays a part in that too, that you have like just you feel it in your gut, this feels right, and this is maybe a little bit, this doesn't, of course it's then personal or very subjective too, but that you have like I don't know, a wine taster could tell if this is a good wine or not, because he has like the quality of taste in a way.
But taste is relative, right? And taste is completely subjective. Like sometimes I read or see record reviews and then I listen to the record, I'm like, this is garbage. I don't know what this person's talking about. Yeah. So I guess it's just like, I don't think, because it is so subjective, I think it's kind of hard to to come to a unified conclusion.
Answer. Yeah, right.
I would think.
Okay. We have our own ways of doing things, and I'd like to ask you, what are like certain principles that are most fundamental to your individual experience as a musician that you can connect to other areas of your life? No?
Repeat that.
What I mean basically is things that the music teaches you, can you transfer it to other areas of your life and vice versa?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially with drumming. I think that being a drummer, I've definitely become better at pattern recognition because it's all patterns. Exactly. And it's patterns within patterns. Yeah. It's a macro pattern to a micro pattern, you know? Yeah. So I think because of that, I've become better at seeing, like, human beings we're pattern recognition machines. Right. But there's also like a muscle that I think that you have to work out. You know, somebody might be able to pick up on something that's happening, but they might not be able to sort of zoom in and I've kind of feel like I've been able to, with music and especially drumming, is be able to see a pattern and understand, like zoom in, figure out how to zoom in. And if I don't understand, then we have the internet. So you could start trying to do some digging around, be like, I saw this, what does this mean? What does that mean? And look up a few YouTube videos or go on Google or like whatever. But that's a big thing that I've learned I'm very more refined pattern recognition, I would say.
Nice. I like that. Performance anxiety is a big one, in the performing arts. How do you tackle that bitch?
It's not easy. I would say repetition, right? So like the first show is always the most nerve-wracking when you're on a tour.
Yeah.
And then the bigger the venue, the more nerves, right? And I would say getting into a flow and getting that going, right? Especially as a drummer, it's like you could rehearse all you want, but as soon as you hit the stage and you're performing for people and you have that adrenaline running through your veins, you're going to perform, and then the next day you're going to wake up and you're going to be sore.
Right.
So it's just, I always find that it's just a matter of getting into like a flow, habits, your gear's set up the same way every day. I use, in-ear monitors, they sound the same way every day. Like, just consistency, and there's like, if there's a curveball thrown, you could deal with it. You're playing, a stick flies out of your hand, or stick breaks, or you miss something, or some shit happens that you can get back on. I think that's really important. Or you can correct as best you can and land the plane. Yeah. But I find it's consistency. It's like getting into a pattern, because it's like human beings were such pattern, habitual creatures that as soon as you throw us out of it, it kind of throws us all for a loop, Yeah.
So athletes use it the same way. So it's like trying to create a certain set of mind then, huh? Yeah.
It's definitely in a bit of a flow. Like, you're at rehearsals, you're getting physically okay, cool. You get that's why you create a set list and you play it 1,000 times. Okay, we're gonna stop here. We're gonna break here. This is a long break. This is a short break. Okay, we can play an interlude here. That sort of shit,
So you don't need to think about it much.
It's just second nature.
Yeah, right.
It's just, and that's, to me. I mean, some bands might thrive off of the opposite, but I feel like for the most part, every band I've toured with, everything that I've done, it's always been like, get it going.
Did it change over time, the level of anxiety, and compared to beginning of your career and now?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely gotten better.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you do this enough times, you conquer it. But the anxiety for me is never really in front of people. It's always the unknown. Like, I have a tendency of becoming a bit anxious because, like, well, what if I go out there and my mix drops out, or what happens? It's always like the what if factor. So it's definitely a bit of stage anxiety because of that.
Right.
But like, once you're going and I'm loose and I'm in the zone, then I'm good. But it's you always get worried, like, fuck, man, especially like bigger crowds. It's like, what if my ears go out? Or like, I've had that happen before. Where I'm playing and then one of my ears, like one of the sides go out. Like, I'm struggling to listen on the other ear because you have a lot of noise, or where I'm playing, and then like you could hear, if you have a wireless pack, sometimes there's radio waves that come through that. There's drops that happen. Trying doing that when there's thousands of people.
How do you or where do you set your focus then in a situation like that? Like, is it? Because I would assume you would try to focus even more.
You do, yeah. Usually with me, I get like a rush of anxiety. A bit of fear goes through because you're in the zone. You're in a state of flow. You're in a flow state, and then suddenly you're taken out of it because something abruptly just happened. Yeah. So it takes you a minute to get back into it. So for me, it's like, depending upon what's happening, it's like, fortunately, I haven't had anything too bad so far. It's nothing that I couldn't get myself out of, but like, it's nothing like playing in front of 20,000 people and then suddenly you just don't have an inner mix anymore and you're following a track.
Yeah.
That's like a worst. That's like worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Like you're playing and boom, and for some reason the batteries die or the pack just takes a shit, and you're following a click where there's cues and there's a band happening, and then suddenly you don't have anything. I think at that point it is just advantageous to stop and just explain to your band really quick what's going on, and then fix it, and have the singer be like, hey, sorry, our drummer completely lost his monitor, so you just start over.
Okay.
That would be the thing, not to try to like trudge through it,
Yeah.
because it's going to sound awful.
Yeah. Shit. There's this idea out there that inspiration is something you have to wait for in order to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
You know, something randomly that flies by.
Yeah.
And a different take is that creativity requires discipline, routine, so it can flourish.
Yeah.
Instead of depending too much upon motivation or creative inspiration, it's more about having a solid game plan in place that directs your passion and creative expression to get ahead in your music journey.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your understanding? Like,
I think it's both.
It's both?
I think it's both. Yeah, I think sometimes shit just hits you. Like, there'll be times where like I'm in my car and an idea will just hit me, and I'll try to jot it down or mouth it off, or if I have a bass or guitar in my hand, record it. And then sometimes you have to work into it. I think it's never just one or the other. I think at certain times in your life, depending upon where you're at and what you're doing, it will be either or.
Okay. How do you feel about belief, self-belief, setting crazy goals, and having the confidence and belief that you can achieve them? How important is that in
It's very important, but you also have to have realistic goals. Like if you are, say for me, like my personality and what I'm into lend my playing and my creativity to a particular genre and a particular style. I'm not a jazz guy. I don't listen to jazz. I like some of the elements of jazz playing, and I try to incorporate them into my playing, but I'm never going to be the world's greatest jazz player because I'm just not into it. And it would be completely absurd and ridiculous for me to just make that out of nowhere, make that some sort of weird goal because of ego or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just think I just have very realistic goals. When I sing, it's not a good voice. So it's like, I'm never going to be a backup singer. I'm never going to sing because it's just the tone of my voice is just not good. So I'm very comfortable with the things that I'm into and the things that I'm good at, and the things that I'm like, I can appreciate other guys or other girls that kill in it, but it's not something that I'm just not into. So I think it's just being very realistic and honest with yourself.
Yeah. Okay, we touched a little bit talent, but when we talk about talent versus effort, while talent doesn't matter in the short run, it's often that perseverance that differentiates people in the long run.
Yep.
In your experience, what's more important?
Perseverance, not giving up.
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing. I mean, you could be a okay player, but if you're okay with being an okay player and you have realistic expectations and you just keep pushing and persevering and not setting the bar too high for yourself, but being like, yeah, I want to do these things, then I think that you will eventually be able to achieve them. That's been my experience, and that's what I've seen. Like, and it kind of comes back to the whole jazz thing.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm like, realistic goals of like, I'm not a jazz guy, I'm a rock guy, and I can play pop, and I can do a little bit of this and do all of that. Like, yeah, it's like it is just one of those things that like I think perseverance makes the most sense.
Yeah. I think talent is it's just wasted potential if you don't put in the effort, the work.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Can you recall maybe a specific moment or moments you talked about the flow state when you lost yourself so much in your music?
I think it
that you just forget everything else around you.
I think not so much in the creative process, because the creative process for me is a very conscious, thoughtful process. But the times that I lose myself is playing shows.
Right.
As soon as you go into a flow state, you're playing for 45 minutes to an hour, and it feels like 20 minutes, 15 minutes. And you completely, because you're just in the moment and you're giving yourself to the performance and you're giving yourself to your instrument and you're letting that out of you, you know? And those are the real times that I kind of lose myself.
So time transformation is a big one then for you.
For that, yeah, for that. But like in the times of being creative, it is a very meticulous, thoughtful process.
Yeah.
And then you learn what you're doing. What I find is then I play it a million times and refine it and get all my parts to a particular place. And then hopefully when I'm recording, I can fall into that flow state. So I'm not thinking about it when I'm playing, I'm just doing. And that the essence of who I am is coming out in my instrument.
Yeah. And moments where the entire band on stage performs like in a state of flow, like more in a group flow.
Yeah. That's sometimes hard. There's times that it's happened, but I don't feel like it happens all that often.
Yeah.
You might have a few guys that are locked in, but then you might have a few guys that just can't.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So the level of skill among all band members needs to be like on point, huh?
I think so. I think it's chemistry. It's a connectivity that you have with the other people that you're playing with.
Yeah.
It's a big thing.
Do you have certain routines, habits that drive your creativity and productivity? Any triggers that get you into a creative state or something like that?
Well, usually if somebody sends me a demo that they want me to play on, it's like listening to it and assessing it. Am I going to be good for this? Do I like this? Do I not like this? Like whatever. And then you listen to it and you're excited by the process, you're excited by the opportunity, you're excited by the song. And then at that point, then you start opening up. The creativity starts opening up. And since where I live and my studio are separated, I'll jump on Logic and I'll do some programming. Like I'll program like a drum kit that's, program drums.
Right.
But like just a very basic like macro idea of what.
A rough idea?
Yeah. Just to get an idea and like, okay, here's the intro and this is the first verse and this is the pre-chorus and this is the chorus. And usually, obviously, all that stuff, there's a lot of patterns that you could figure out very quickly. Yeah. But it's just to kind of get a basic framework. And then from that, I'll take it to my studio and then I'll jam it out and I'll play and I will record the drums there and demo the drums out there and start listening to it and refining it. And once I feel like I have something that I feel really good about, then I'll send it to, band members or artists or band that I'm working for and then get feedback. And then you can refine from there and go from there.
How important is the feedback aspect?
Feedback is good. Feedback can be good and bad, right? Because it's like sometimes somebody will have an idea and it's an awesome idea. And then, you go with that idea instead of your idea, which is fine. But then other times they have an idea and it's not what you were thinking. And it's not so much association with like ego or anything like that. It's just more like, I saw this going this direction and you're taking it this direction. And sometimes in the short term, it could take you a moment to really open yourself up to that idea, or even just in general. Like sometimes there's stuff that I listen to on records that I've played that I'm like, yep, I still don't like that. It just never grew on me.
Right.
I think this is somewhat of an inferior idea to what I had. And then other times I'm like, oh man, this is a great idea. This is superior to what I have,
Yeah. Is there a specific time during the day when you prefer like doing your creative work? Maybe not the mornings, or you rather do it in the afternoons?
I'm more morning or early afternoon guy.
Okay.
In the evening, my natural clock starts to turn off. I for some reason I can't be creative really, really late at night.
Yeah.
Though I would say that if for some reason over time, if I slowly shifted my schedule and made it a habit and became comfortable with it, then I probably could, but I preferably like to wake up, do my morning routine, and then jump into my studio, whether it's here or my studio, where my drums are set up, and then go from there,
Okay. So you have a morning routine.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. How long is that?
Usually it's a few hours. I get up, I usually have like lemon and room temperature water with two tablespoons of apple cider vinegar.
Nice.
That's how I start off, and then then from that I jump into coffee. Usually, if I'm by myself, I'm thinking about my day, I'm thinking about whatever. If I'm with my girlfriend, we're talking, and then shower. After shower or before or after shower, I'll make a morning protein shake that has take vitamins.
Right.
Has a bunch of good stuff. Shower, get cleaned up. Make my bed, make sure that my place is clean and organized, and then I'll head off and do whatever I need to do. And sometimes if I'm in a hurry, then you have to cut some of those things out. But for the most part, that's what my routine in the morning is.
Nice, I like it. Then the environment, how much does it play into your mental state of mind?
It's a big thing. Mm-hmm. I didn't really realize it, and it's not so much the environment; it's feeling comfortable in the environment, right? Mm-hmm. So, like I was saying before, my girlfriend's going to be moving in, so my environment's going to change because I love her element, and I want her element to be incorporated into our home. Right. So it's going to take a moment because there's going to be new elements, but it might feel a little weird at first just because there's just new things. Yeah. There's a wall that wasn't that color, now it's a particular color, and she has her art and her stuff. And it's not that it's bad, it's just, okay, I've been looking at this wall for years this way. Right. It's going to take me a few weeks, and then once you feel comfortable and everything feels cool.
Changing some habits, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How do you tackle creative ruts?
Walking away. I feel like you can't force it. I feel like you push and push and push and push, and then whenever you hit the wall, don't keep pushing. Put it down. Go do something else. Hang out with friends. Hang out with partners or partner. Hang out with friends. Go get something to eat. Like you kind of intuitively know. Actually, not. I can come back to this later. I have a little more juice in me, or I'm gonna deal with this tomorrow, or like I need a few days off. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like trying to force anything is not good.
Yeah. Okay. Autonomy. How important is it for you when being creative, or even when collaborating with others, expressing your own personality through your music or creative expression, or just executing other one's ideas?
I think that it depends the circumstance, right? So if I get hired for something that I'm just a utility and I'm not a creative, and I understand that going into it, I prepare myself.
You have certain expectations.
Yeah.
Right.
Or if there's situations where I go into it and it's 100% creativity, I'm aware of that. Or if it's somewhere in the middle, I'm aware of that too. And I could sort of prep myself. And if I prep myself going in, then I'm good. But if there's a bit of a switch along the way, then I have to usually either, if it's a great gig and it's just, you just kind of have to deal with it because that's just how life is, then you deal with it. If it's something that is a non-negotiable, that is a line has been crossed, I'm like, hey, well, when I accepted this is what it is. It's not this way anymore. I'm gonna have to step back from it because this is I'm just not into this.
Right. So clarity is then important.
Very, very clear. I like to be overly communicative and very, very transparent from the jump, because then nobody is left surprised or shocked if it takes a weird turn.
Yeah, and when you can bring your own creativity, your own personality into the music, probably a loaded question, but would you consider it more meaningful or more joyful for you compared to like, okay, this is just a gig?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we all want to express ourselves. Yeah. And to the best of our abilities into how we see a song going or an idea going. I've been very fortunate enough to be able to express myself to the fullest in most of my gigs. Mm-hmm. And the times that I wasn't able to express myself fully and say somebody else was influencing it, I made a point of learning how to extract if I liked what they were doing, of course. Yeah. Extracting, like, they're trying to push us in a particular direction. Oh, I understand. That's pretty cool. Oh, like, somebody I was working with recently was like, oh, you can create great tension by, in the verses, maybe doing it in an odd signature, like a 5/4 or a 7/4 or like a 9/4, and then you do an even meter in the chorus because it's a tension and it's a release. And I didn't realize that until like we did a song, I tracked a song, and it was cool. It was fine, he was very adamant about his ideas, like, okay, cool. And then a few months later, probably longer than a few months, but like let's just say a few months later, he had just told me that. We were just having a conversation. We were out one night, and we were just talking about it, and he brought it up, and I was like, oh shit, that's cool. Okay, that's a new tool. That's a new little trick I have in my toolbox.
Right.
That I have now that I could break out down the road. So I do like that in the sense that like when people do have great ideas, and you can extract that and you can make it your own. But then sometimes just people have bad ideas.
Right. Yeah, I remember when we worked on a couple of songs, you think you mentioned that music actually is building tension and releasing it.
That's basically what music is. It's a series of building tensions and releases. It's one long build, tension and release. That's what it is. You're building tension and you're releasing.
Yeah, I like the simplicity in it, and I think it keeps it very natural in a way. Yeah.
I think human beings were very simple creatures, even though that we obviously are quite developed and we learn how to do very complicated things. Music is something that speaks to the emotions, and emotions isn't a logical thing. It isn't an intellectual thing. It's an emotional thing. And tension and release is very much rooted in emotion. You know what I mean? Imagine this build up, and then this emotional release. It's pretty ubiquitous. It's like it's in sex. It's in, having a child. Like even that, there's a buildup. It's like the child is gestating in the mom for, mother for 9 months, and then there's the birth. It's like it is very, very like built into human emotions as tension and release. Because everybody wants the release. The tension builds, and then there's the release, and it feels great. Whatever it is, whether it's sex or whether it's even working, like tension and release of like you're building songs. There's tension that's happening. There's tension amongst the members. There's tension songs. And then you make the record, and then you get it, and there's the release. It's like,
Yeah, I have the feeling.
It's fundamental.
It's a natural rhythm of life. It's like water. It's like waves in a way.
Yeah. But yeah, that's definitely like how I view music all the time. Is like when somebody sends me a song, the first thing I always think of is like, where's the tension and release points? Is it one big build and release? Is it a series of small builds? How many builds is there? That's the first thing that I always listen to with music. And how do the drums emphasize that? How does it emphasize the tension, and how does it emphasize the release? And it's very easy to do that in a normal pop structure. It's when you move into more of the obtuse arrangements where there's like a part A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's just like, how do you tension and release this when it's like you're moving moods, then maybe it becomes more about like less tension and release and more about frantic, crazy parts into releases. Because that's pretty common amongst certain types of, say, hardcore and like metal hardcore. Right. Or it's like it's a frantic part, it's a crazy part, and then there's a release, which is still a form of tension and release. It's just like an offshoot, I guess.
Okay. How do you use your senses while playing? Where do you set your focus on while playing? I mean, is it a combination of things? Do you use your arms when it comes to focusing on it different than your legs? Like touch, feel, sound, your visual sense combination.
I guess in what situation? Recording, live. No, but that's what I'm asking. Because it's different.
Yeah. When you, for example, focus is one of the flow follows focus. So it's a flow trigger. Your focus. And when you play live, do you think how is your focus different compared to when you're in the studio and making a song, for example, or practice?
It's kind of the opposite. So if we do studio and live, before I play live, my energy needs to be low and my brain needs to be blank. And I need to be in this just the beginnings of flow state, right? Like that's crucial. I don't think, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not, I'm feeling the anxiety of about to go on stage because what we talked about before, the adrenaline's hitting, and then you go out there and you do it, and it's usually it's good or whatever, or it's not good, whatever. Studio is the opposite, where it's just like it's completely
more
conscious in focus, because you're there. Like if I show up for a session, hopefully we would have done some sort of pre-production, and the producer and the artist that I'm working for, the band, they know what we're getting into. Nobody's just coming in with, not having heard demos, so to speak. So we get in, and that becomes more of like a focus of, because I have to, if people are gonna say, if I do a pass of a song and they're like, that's great, but I'd like to do another version with some more fills, or try the beat like this, or instead of doing it on the crash, go to the ride crash, or whatever. You have to be able to like think on the fly and be able to bust these things out, and give the people that are, entrusting you and paying you, giving them what they want, while also to being sort of creatively true to yourself. So I would say those two situations is completely different. They're completely opposites, because when I go and I play on stage, there's a rhythm that we're in. There's like, you're gonna start, there's an intro, you play the first song, there's a 2-second break, click in, like it's very boom, 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 boom. Where it's like studio, it's just like, that's great, can you do another pass? Let's try these type of fills here, let's try, and then that's kind of what you have to do. So it's like, it's more mind, I'm more in my mind,
it's more conscious than
conscious, for sure.
Yeah. And when you're struggling with a certain, fill or whatever, and it's difficult to get it down, just challenged, it's a little bit where you really need to stretch yourself. Can you tell a different kind of level of concentration?
No, I think that sometimes certain things are just out of your capabilities at that very moment. When somebody kind of throws a curveball at you and say you need to practice it a little bit, then you do a few takes until you get it. If it's completely if something is thrown my way that's completely out of my skill set, then I'll just be pretty honest with it. Like, I don't know if I could pull that off. Like, that's a little, for me to pull that off, I'd have to learn a few new things, which is cool, but I don't know if we could do it now.
Yeah.
So either you pull some studio magic if the artist or the band is adamant. They're like, well, how do we make this happen? You know what I mean? Like, and then you figure out how to make it happen, or you find an alternative that works just as well.
We talked earlier about goal setting, but there are different kinds of goals. There's, for example, achievements, your performance, and then learning goals that you want to grow, or you want to experience something.
Of course. Yeah.
Do you have any priorities? And it depends probably also on the situation, but is it there's an idea or the philosophy of value the process before results, for example, that the journey is more important than the achievement, for example.
Yeah, I would definitely say that we definitely become very focused on the end result, but the journey to get to the end result is more important than the end result normally, because it's the struggle, because human beings definitely thrive. Like, I think we're hardwired to struggle, and as much as it sucks, when you eventually reach the goal, it feels good, but it doesn't feel good for very long. And then you go back into the whole like, well, what's the next thing? And then what's the next thing?
You need another high.
And it's like, it feels good to be uncertain if you could do something and then do it, or it feels good to physically struggle, and then it just I don't know, it just does something. So I definitely do think that the struggle and the journey is way more important than the actual thing, because like, that's life. Life is a big struggle. We're here to suffer, and we're here to grow as a product of suffering. And then, then we die.
Right.
So like when we die, like we reach the end of everything. So it's like the journey is the most important things, and the relationships that you cultivate, the experiences that you have, like that's the ups and the downs and all this sort, like that's what it's all about. Even though it sucks because the human mind naturally always wants to take the easiest route, path of least resistance.
Exactly,
It'd be awesome if you could like take a pill and that turns your brain off and you're like, fuck yeah, you're stoked to struggle.
Yeah.
But nobody's stoked to struggle, but we have to. It's part of being a human being.
Yeah. What does or what did failure then teach you?
Failure leaves clues. Failure always leaves clues. And it's whether you're willing to look at your failures and be honest with yourself and be honest with what you did wrong, what you could have done better, and correcting those when you move on to the next thing.
I like, I think it's a Romanian philosopher, Emil Cioran. He said failure is the gateway to discovering who you truly are. I like that. Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
So dreams have some meaning within the creative world. Some musicians apparently wrote songs in their dreams. I don't know, Paul McCartney or so, I think, and Keith Richards. Do you have any creative insights while dreaming or coming out of a dream and then can recall anything like that?
No, not in terms of the creative process. I find that I don't remember my dreams all that often.
No, me neither.
But I do, because I kind of find dreams, the times that I do dream, I don't really remember specifically what it is, but I do understand what's happening. It's like things that have been spoken about, things that you've seen, experiences that you've had, things that you've looked, everything, and it just gets put in this big cauldron, and your deepest fears and the things that you want to do with your life get put in there as well, and just things within your everything just gets put in there and it just gets fucking stirred up.
Yeah.
And then that's what comes out in your dream. So, I mean, I definitely do think that there are clues within your dreams. Like if you really think about it, coming out of a dream, if you had something that was crazy or tense or whatever, coming out of it, and you can extract something from it. I think that's great, but I've never been able to do that from a creative point of view.
Yeah.
I've only done that from like this is my subconscious trying to tell me something.
Right.
How
important are your lifestyle choices? Your sleep, your nutrition, exercise. You mentioned how important your social relationships are for your performance also, for your playing.
I think it's crucial. I think that there are things that I definitely need to work on more. I need to definitely get back into doing more cardiovascular and do more weight training because of what I do, and as the older I get, I don't do that nearly as much as I should. And then same thing with diet. It's like I don't have the best diet, but I don't have the worst diet. I think it's kind of somewhere in the middle. It could definitely stand to improve a bit. My girlfriend is very healthy, and she's very physically active, and she's a very, very good cook. So I told her when she moves in, I'm gonna follow her lead on food, healthy food.
She's gonna kick your butt, dude.
That's good, but no, it's what I want. I definitely need it. I definitely need it.
Nice. Mindfulness is a big topic these days. Do you apply any gratitude practices or something like that?
Yeah, I do, because it's easy to kind of get lost in what you don't have. And it's easier to always say, I'm here, and then these people are here.
Yeah.
But I think that to have perspective is very, very important. Like you said, mindfulness. I definitely do think about that a lot. When I'm frustrated about this or whatever, I'm like, I'm very fortunate. I've done all these things, and I have these people in my life, and these people are incredible. And, I live in this very beautiful place, and I, blah, 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 blah. And I remind myself of all that I have and all that I've achieved. And I want more. I'd like to keep ascending upwards, but it's good to take a time out and really have perspective and gratitude and humility.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really, really important.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm probably not considered as a rich person, but I have the feeling I live a rich life in a way.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
It's relative though, right? You know, it's like I always look at it. The big thing that I've learned recently, and it's so simplistic, but we don't think about things because we get lost in it, is that having money only solves money problems.
Right.
That's it. That's all it solves.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think that money is going to solve your personal relationships, your trauma, your insecurities, any of that stuff, it's completely foolish to think that.
Mm-hmm.
Like having money is rad, and having cash, and maybe owning a really nice house, really nice car, and having money in the bank and not having to worry. Money to me is only stability and it's freedom. That is all that money is to me. I don't seek to have money aside from that. Like I know a lot of people use money to show status.
Yeah, especially here, right?
Especially here, but just in general, because humans are we're very hierarchy based.
Validation seekers.
Yeah, that's just how we are. And like I don't know, for me, it's like if I had the money to buy a Lamborghini, I wouldn't buy a Lamborghini because it's just not my thing.
Right.
I'd be the guy that like buys the $250,000 recording desk. I guess it's more of a niche flex.
Right.
You know, but it's just a nice thing to have that I could use and what I love doing and that sort of thing. But we're very hierarchy based, and I do have to remind myself a lot that money is just. It'll just solve those problems. It's not going to solve any of your other problems in your life. If anything, having a lot of money it'll solve some problems, but I think it'll create a lot of problems as well. That people that don't have money don't realize. I've been around a few people that have money, and I see they become very isolated. Your circle should always be very small to begin with, but their circle's even smaller because they're always looking around like, well, does this person just want me for my money?
Exactly.
And that's a shitty place. My thing is, if I ever got super super rich for whatever reason, I just wouldn't tell anybody. I wouldn't say anything. I would hide my whatever money I had. I would hide it, and I'd invest. I probably wouldn't lead that much of a different life, but I'd probably invest a lot of it, and I wouldn't let anybody know. Hey, I won the lottery, or like, hey, I got in this inheritance, or hey, I made a few good investments, and the only person that would know was my partner.
Yeah.
I don't even think I would tell my parents. I would just I would keep it a complete secret, because when you have money, it changes your relationship with people. And I don't think for the most part, I don't think it's for the better. I think it's for the worst.
Yeah, I agree. What are the things you enjoy most about being a musician, and what are the things that are part of it, but you could easily let go of?
Things I enjoy but I could easily let go of? I don't know. I think I enjoy all of it, to be quite honest. I love the creative process. I love recording. I love touring. I love playing. So touring and playing are linked, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The traveling aspect of touring.
Yes, some musicians hate it.
Yeah, some people don't like it.
Yeah.
I love, drums. I love gear. I love, like I was just telling you, if I had a ton of money, I would seek out a 1073 Neve. That's what I would spend my money on, and like, I'm not necessarily an engineer, but I appreciate it. I appreciate that piece of technology. I appreciate recording drums through something like that.
Maybe the business side of it, dealing. I don't know.
Business side always kind of sucks a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that if you understand your worth and you have some business sense, it's not that bad. Negotiating things definitely sucks because it always makes things uncomfortable. To a certain degree, I feel uncomfortable negotiating sometimes, especially if you're dealing with that sort of situation, the zero-sum situation where they're trying to win, and for them to win, you have to lose, and by you losing is taking this amount of money. That's why my goal is always to be in a position where you could walk away from anything. You don't need things. If somebody hits you up and you're financially in a position where you don't need to take it, then you don't take it. Because there's nothing worse than negotiating something that you're not stoked on and then having to do it, because then you become resentful.
Yeah.
Even though technically you've signed off on it, you're taking it because, I haven't worked in a few months, or fuck, need it, want to do this or want to do, you know, that sort of shit.
And I mean, you're coming from a time where there was no streaming, no download. You still had like selling vinyl and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How it changed, like that part of it. I have the feeling music is devalued. You know, it's taken for granted. You just jump on Spotify and you can listen to anything. And you know, musicians put a lot of work in it. You know, it costs money to produce it, create it.
Yeah.
And is that, for example, something? It could be less enjoyable, or like the marketing part, playing that social media game, or is it you don't mind that?
That stuff doesn't bother me that much. I think what makes me upset the most, say like marketing and social media, is that like you're a slave to the algorithm on that particular platform.
Yeah, you become a puppet.
Essentially. So it's like if you have, you know, like Poison the Wall has like I think around 22 or 23,000 followers on Instagram per se, or on Instagram, and we don't hit everybody equally.
Right.
They give it to some people, and if people bite, then it keeps feeding it.
Yeah.
Opposed to just being like, hey, here's our thing. And I get it that it's their platform and they want to have the upper hand and they want to have the advantage. And people use Instagram. A lot of people use Instagram. So I get it. I think that's the thing that I don't like, because it's a game that you can't win.
Yeah.
You can't win the game of algorithm. The only way that you win the game by algorithm on any of these platforms is to curate what you do for people rather than for yourself.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is more like this being a puppet, that you jump on trends.
I hate it. Yeah, I totally hate it. Yeah. I totally hate it. And I think it sucks, and it's like, yeah, you kind of have to take the slow road if you want to build something meaningful.
Right.
Because if you're constantly jumping on trends, then that's what you get known for. And it's never consistent. Like, they used to say like 15 minutes of fame. Mm-hmm. Now it's like 15 seconds of fame.
Yeah, it is.
So it's like, and if that's your thing, right? If that's what you're trying to, trying to get something to go viral so that you get
vanity metrics, more or less.
Yeah. So, but I don't like that. I do enjoy the marketing part. Like people that are like, hey, this is the approach and this is what we're thinking about doing with the rollout and blah, blah, blah. I think that's cool. Because it's just information that you could pick up and you could learn. Like, oh, that's cool.
Right.
Like, you're doing this way. Then okay, I kind of see your guys' game plan. That's really cool. I like strategy, so
nice.
That's cool for me. But
yeah,
I would yeah.
What's your relationship with the nostalgic power of music? How did your music taste change over the years? And are you still into the stuff that you listened to when you were a teenager or a young adult?
I definitely say when I was younger, music was more exciting. Mm-hmm. And as I've gotten older, I think this is a pretty normal thing. Yeah. You become less excited over music, especially if you're creating it. Mm. I definitely feel very uninspired recently, which is, not the most positive thing to say.
Right.
I think it's mostly because music being made today, like say on a larger level, isn't made for somebody like me. It's made for consumers of a younger age,
right?
And then there's bands and artists that I listen to that I like, and they're putting out cool stuff. But I don't know what it is. I think my focus and attention has become a little bit less linked with like discovering new stuff in my relationship with music, because I feel quite comfortable with my relationship with music, and I know what I like and I know what I don't like. And if that energy and attention has kind of gone more into like personal growth, and that like learning more, not just about music, but it's like learning more about life and learning about more business and learning about this and that, blah, blah, blah. So it's like my relationship, I guess I'd say my relationship with music now is just kind of coasting. Okay. And I'm hoping at some point I'll step back into it and feel very inspired and hear a bunch of shit that I'm really stoked on. But I find that like, there's cool bands and there's cool shit that I listen to, but it's not the same as when I was younger, because when you're younger, you're discovering stuff. Now it's like that whole excitement for me of discovering things is not in music, it's in other aspects of life and myself.
Right. Yeah, I can pretty much relate to that.
Yeah.
Maybe I had 2 albums that blew me away in the last Like really, I got super excited about the music, or like discovering a new band.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but then just a couple maybe, and that's it. In the last decade, even I would say.
I think as you get older, it becomes you like when you're younger, you haven't heard things, and then you emotionally connect with things. But as you get older, how many times can you play a rock song?
Right.
Like there are bands that do it in an insanely complicated way, to like a high degree, and there's bands that do it in a very simplistic way. It becomes less and less like, how do you find your creative voice? How do you do something different?
Mm-hmm.
It becomes more and more difficult to do that.
Yeah.
You know, and not to say it's impossible. It's just, you know, the Beatles wrote those songs in the 60s, right? And it's like those same style of writing and melodies are being used now. By the 60s, it was all new shit.
Right.
You know, it's like.
But what kind of music or band songs do you like listening to at the moment?
I would say if I listen to stuff, it's usually dark synth-based music.
Mm.
Sometimes with live elements, sometimes not with sometimes with or without live elements.
Mm-hmm.
Really great, well-written pop songs, like older stuff, like stuff from the 80s, like 90s and stuff like that, more recently. And then stuff that emotionally resonates with me, like Nirvana in Utero or Soundgarden Superknown or whatever records from my formative years. And yeah, that I would say that's it. Every once in a while I'll discover something new. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. You know, hopefully it sticks over the long term, and then if it doesn't, then it's just
just for the moment.
Just for the moment, which is okay too.
Right.
It's okay to have music and guilty pleasures that
Yeah.
you won't be listening to in 6 months from now.
Yeah. Do you have, of all the music you've done so far, is there anything in particular that is more meaningful to you, or you're more stoked about, or no, maybe a whole album or a song, or
stuff that I've played on and been a part of?
Yeah. Or like even a performance, a festival, concert.
I definitely have to say the Poison the Well catalog, for different reasons, even though some of it I don't listen to or some of it I feel kind of detached from. It's to me, they're like children. There's it's like children that I had, that I created. I created these things that are the kids,
right?
And they're like, they're becoming adults, and I created these things with other individuals that we had a shared vision and mutual investment into. So I definitely feel proud of all those records, especially because some of them are important to people, and Poison the Well can still reissue 20th anniversary, 15th anniversary, 25th.
It's badass, isn't it?
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Like, not a lot of people get to do that on, regardless of what the level is.
Yeah.
It's fucking awesome. I'd say that those are all very proud for me. I would say the live record that I did with Dhani Harrison at Henson Studio was awesome. That was a great experience. I'm very, very proud of that. Proud of my performance. Proud of everything. I would say all the stuff that I'm doing with Greg Puciato is cool, because he pushes me in the areas that I'm weak in a very like positive, productive way.
Yeah.
So I feel more open, whereas like Poison Well and is very restrictive, not in a bad way, but in a productive way. Whereas like working with him he's pushes. Sometimes he wants more and more and more, even to the point where it's just like I don't feel capable, but I could do it. All the stuff that I've been doing with him, I really, really enjoy a lot.
Nice.
Did like a live stream with some songs on it. Played on his 6 or 7 songs on his debut record, and then I played his new record that's coming out June or July, I think.
Awesome.
I played on everything. So yeah, I feel very proud. Those are all for me the sort of highlights musically that I feel very proud of, and I feel very I feel very, very proud of, and it's like, if you're able to do that once, that's awesome, and I've been able to do it close to 10 times. So I'm super grateful for that.
Awesome. In that context, what does collaboration then mean to you as a creative?
That means coming together with somebody else or a group of people with a shared goal or shared vision and doing your absolute best to execute it, working together as a team to be proud of the end result. Really, kind of, that's definitely how I look at it.
And on an individual level, how would you compare like the creative quality or creative output if you compare it in a team? You know, like I think collaboration takes creativity to a whole other level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because hopefully you're working with people that see things a little bit differently than you do, but you have a common vision. And say if you're weak in this particular area, that's their strength.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So it's like you're kind of coming together as Voltron to create this cool thing.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like if you're kind of good at everything, then what's the point of collaborating? If you have the vision and you could play everything and you could do everything, what's the point? I mean, I know people like that immensely talented people. They could do everything from start to finish.
Yeah,
we don't need other people.
Multi-instrumentalist, yeah.
Yeah, which is cool.
Right.
I would definitely say that's cool that they have that ability, but the trade-off to that is like, yeah, you might be the guy or the girl with all the ideas and that's great, but like you do definitely get something with working with other people.
Yeah.
There's also a point of having too many cooks in the kitchen, so it's like collaborating with one or two other people that you have a shared vision, shared goal. You like what they do, and you could extract something from them. You know, in a positive way.
Right, and then every member of the team needs to play his or her role in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember that. That you mentioned when it comes to group dynamics and a certain vibe within a group that you like collaborating more with feminine types.
Feminine energy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it definitely feels good to collaborate more with feminine energy. I can't really explain why.
Yeah.
But I feel it feels complementary with like my energy. Not that I'm like this, fucking overly masculine dude or anything like that, but it feels drums are very primal and very masculine in sort of nature. So when you're collaborating with a songwriter or a singer, there's some sort of, usually most people that I've collaborated with that are singers, there's a very feminine energy to them. And usually that's a very good dynamic because drums and vocals are very intrinsically linked together. Most people don't realize it. They think, drums and bass or drums and guitar, but drum section. Yeah, it's like you have the foundation, then you have the top, and it's just like to me it's just like a straight shot from one to the other. You know.
I like it. Yeah, I know my strength. I know what enjoys me about making music, and I don't know. I thrive completely on collaborating with others. That's
it's great, man.
Yeah,
you learn, dude. You learn.
My most joy out of music, actually.
You learn, especially if you admire people. Like I've worked with a bunch of people that I admire, and you can extract. You're like cool. Fuck, man. Like I'm playing on a song, and like I've always admired this guy or this girl, this band or whatever.
Right.
And now we're fucking playing together, and it's like it's cool. It's just fucking rad, you know. It's like it's very very cool.
Sweet. Besides music, what else are you interested in or passionate about?
Self growth.
Nice.
Growing putting all your energy into becoming the best person, the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
Physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that, especially in America, is not. It's not. America's about giving you what you want and not giving you what you need. And those are things that you need. Like your body needs to be healthy, your mind needs to be healthy, your emotions and your soul need to be healthy. And I think, especially going through the pandemic, is that a lot of that stuff wasn't emphasized, especially the health part.
Exactly, yeah.
And that is my primary, aside from music, that's the big thing that like I'm very, very focused on.
Yeah, I can relate to that a lot.
But it's hard, it's a big undertaking, it's a very, very big undertaking.
Yeah, his self-motivation is that's a big
it's
challenge.
not easy.
Yeah, that's a big challenge. Do you have any advice for younger musicians who are just starting out with their music journey?
Don't.
No,
just like, no. Obviously, if you feel passionate about something, you should. I've always feel that people should pursue it, whether it's something that dead ends in their 20s or it dead ends when they die. I think that, regret is one of those things that is a very terrible thing to live with. and the what if factor. So for somebody to want to pursue music and say it gives them 5 or 10 years before they make some sort of conscious decision to take a different path, or 15, 20 or whatever, I think it's very important that people pursue it to see where it'll take them.
Yeah.
And if they choose to get off the ride, that's great. If the ride kicks them off, that's great. But it's like hey, I did this. It wasn't for me, right? Like I did this and I had some success, but then I chose to go this direction.
Yeah.
I think once again, it's like when you're on your deathbed and you're looking back, is that going to be one of the things that you regret?
Right.
And that's a big thing that I live my life by. I don't ever want to look back and regret certain things. And we're all going to have regrets. I think it's impossible not to, but like minimize those regrets.
Yeah. And forgiveness is a big one in that regard, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's no guarantee for anything in life, but I think at least try to give it your all, give it your shot.
Shoot your shot, see what happens. Like I said, you don't know what will happen. You might do it and it might not pan out, but it might lead you down a different path that is just as fruitful and just as I wouldn't be here now talking to you if I didn't decide to play music. We wouldn't have met. We wouldn't have worked together. I wouldn't have worked with a lot of people that I respect, or worked in studios that that some of my favorite artists and bands worked in, or been to countries, or just done a ton of crazy shit.
It's insane.
Yeah, you just have to do it.
Yeah. And
just see where it goes.
Okay, man, that's it from my side. Is there anything else you would like to share or talk about?
No, man. It was good. It was a good interview.
Cool.
Just look me up on social media if you like drums and heavy drums.
And what's your website?
www.chrishornbrook.com.
Badass.
All my discography. Now, actually talking to the camera now. All discography, videos, music, biography, endorsements, all that shit's on there. And social media links are on there as well. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. This was badass. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries, man. Anytime.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found the conversation interesting and valuable, and I can't wait to share the next one with you. Thanks for your interest. This is the greatest way to support independent art. Bleed creativity.